Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Staying Positive in Tough Times. I'm your host, Scott Meyer, franchise owner, recruiter with Patrice and Associates, and I'm extremely excited today. We have Ryan Miller, our own Patrice and Associates COO. He's a great leader, and I don't know anybody else I'd rather have on this webinar about talking about staying positive in tough times. So I hope after this webinar, you'll have a more positive Friday ongoing. Just want to recognize Brian, some attributes of himself. So he's the CEO and partner of Patrice Associates Franchising, nationwide recruiting firm specializing in the hospitality, retail, and sector. He's helped the Patrice brand grow exponentially with results through franchise sales and unit economics. Patrice Associates has more than 150 offices in North America and serves some of the top hotel and chain restaurant brands. Brian has nearly 25 years in staffing and franchising and has provided business coaching and consulting to services to over 400 franchise companies across more than 30 different industry sectors. Brian is a sought out keynote speaker and trainer in a variety of topics such as sales, entrepreneurship, and executive coaching. So I want to go ahead and bring on Brian Miller to start us off here.
All right, thank you, Scott. I'm excited to be here with all of you today. These are certainly surreal times that we're living through, and it's great to have an opportunity to be able to connect with small business owners and entrepreneurs and kind of share messages with each other. I think now's the time that we need to support each other as small business people and as leaders as we all kind of navigate through these uncharted waters together. Many of you I know I've talked to, and you feel like there's no playbook for this. So it's good for us to be able to get together as leaders in small businesses and entrepreneurial organizations and kind of share our thoughts about what's working. And I was excited when Scott asked me to take a few minutes and talk to you today about a topic which is very near and dear to my heart, which is staying positive in challenging times. And so I was thinking about, what could I share with you? Of course, we'll talk a little bit about what our company is doing, Patrice and Associates, to stay positive through tough times. But a friend of mine gave me a book for Christmas last year, and I read it in January, and I'm showing you the book here. It's called Make Your Bed. If you want to go to the next slide, Scott, it's by Admiral William H. McRaven. Now, he was an admiral in the Navy, and he was also a Navy SEAL. He is a man of very high integrity. I would strongly advise that if you haven't gotten this book, go to Amazon and order the book. You can read it in about an hour. It's a short book, and it has a lot of powerful implications for us right now. Admiral McRaven served under two presidents, President Bush and President Obama, and he served with dignity and grace and as a man of high integrity. And the lessons that he shared in this book, Make Your Bed, I think have a particular implication for us today. I read the book in January, and then I woke up earlier this week thinking to myself, I need to pull that book out again and think about what lessons that has to lead myself, my family, and our company through a crisis like this. So if you want to go to the next slide, Scott, I want to share just a little bit of an excerpt from the book with you. I wish I had time to be able to read the whole first chapter to you, but we don't have time to do that today. But there are some messages here that I think are very important. Now, the book called Make Your Bed has a list of about 10 different tasks. He actually delivered this as a keynote speak at the University of Texas about a year or so ago. And what I want to focus on today is point number 1 and point 8, 9, and 10. But we'll start off with point number 1, which is starting your day with the task completed. So one of the things, if you've ever been in the military, or maybe your dad or mom was in the military, one of the things you learn very quickly in the military is you're taught how to make your bed. And they make a pretty big deal about that. And they certainly did for General McRaven when he was a Navy SEAL. And he said one of the first things that you learn if you want to take part in basic training for being a member of the U.S. SEAL team is the proper way to make your bed. And that's really lesson number 1. It's always start your day by making your bed. Now, you might say to yourself, well, how's that going to change the world, right? Well, it's not actually making the bed that matters. It's the discipline that you put into it. And more importantly, the fact that by making your bed, you're starting your day on a high note, already with a task completed. And he shares some fascinating stories in the book about when he first learned how to do this. I'm going to share with you just a little bit of an excerpt of that first chapter, just to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor about what he was talking about. So this is just a tiny little excerpt from the book. He says, standing motionless, I could see the instructor out of the corner of my eye. He wearily looked at my bed. Bending over, he checked the hospital corners, and then he surveyed the blanket and the pillow to ensure that they were correctly aligned. Then reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a quarter and flipped it into the air several times to ensure I knew the final test of the bed was coming. With one final flip of the quarter, it flew high into the air and came down on the mattress with a light bounce. It jumped several inches off the bed, high enough for the instructor to catch it in his hand. Swinging around to face me, the instructor looked at me in the eye and just nodded. He never said a word. Making my bed correctly was not going to be an opportunity for praise. It was expected of me. It was my first task of the day, and doing it right was important. It demonstrated my discipline. It showed my attention to detail. And at the end of the day, it would be a reminder that I had done something well, something to be proud of, no matter how small the task. So as we think about what Admiral McRaven is saying here, he goes on in the book to talk about something that they call a sugar cookie. So he wasn't patted on the back because he made his bed every day, but he was punished if he did it. If that quarter didn't lightly bounce like his superior said that it had to if he made the bed right, he got what is called a sugar cookie. Now that wasn't the sugar cookie that you and I think of as being something pleasant. He had to go out dressed fully in his uniform, go into the ocean, come out of the ocean, and roll around on the sand, on the white sand in Southern California, until he looked like a sugar cookie because he didn't make his bed the right way. Now, the point behind all of that isn't that making your bed changes the world, but it is a task that is completed. And if you start and if you can't do the little things right, then you're not going to be able to do the big things right. And the reason why that is such an important centerpiece of the book is that even when we're in very tough times, as we are living through right now, right, you feel like you're out of control. And all of us feel that way to a certain degree, right? We feel like we're a little bit out of control. There's only a finite amount of things that we can control. There are a few things that we can control. Just like he could control no matter what happened during that day. And even as he describes his accomplishments on the battlefield and being in Iraq and everything else, and some days were terrible days for him, just absolutely terrible days. The one thing that he could look is he did an accomplishment every day. He got up and he made his bed. So what I'm challenging all of you to think about, and it's the same thing that I'm challenging myself to think about every day, is what are the little things? What are the little tasks that we can complete every day that give us that sense of accomplishment and that help us to stay positive and help us to move forward? Certainly as leaders, which what most of you that are on the line here today are listening to, you have to lead someone, right? You have to lead yourself. You have to lead maybe a team of people. You have to lead your family. You know, you have to lead people in your business. And as leaders, we're caused to, as number 8 says, rise to the occasion. We're caused to give people hope, and we're caused to never, ever quit. Now, as the next slide indicates, you know, I thought it would be good for a minute to maybe just focus on the positive. And the slide that you're seeing in front of you, I thought I would share this with you. The source for this is ushealthdata.org. And this is a slide, or at least maybe if you haven't seen this slide in the last 2 days on the news, you've heard about the data that's being shared. And the data that's being shared, what does this have to do with me or you? It is, you know, the anticipated hospital usage of hospital beds in the United States of America. Now, what's important to note about this is that as we live through this pandemic that we've been going through, we've all been talking about flattening the curve and how to get beyond the curve. And as you see there, the peak or the spike is this Sunday, April the 11th. is supposed to be the peak. And from there, as a country, it's supposed to go downhill to the point where you see by mid-May, we really are flattening out the curve. Now, of course, in every state, every community, every locale, it's a little bit different. You know, I live close to the epicenter here in New York, and our state hasn't fared that well either. But as a whole, we're all going to get through this. And that's the message here that I want to share with you today. When we're kind of in the weeds, sometimes I'm sure you've heard that saying, you know, if you're so deep in the forest, you can't see the forest for the trees because you're so deep in the middle of something, you can only see what's in front of you every single day. You know, in a matter of a month, maybe, let's say a month, you know, as we're moving into mid-May, we're going to be on the other side of this. And as we go into June and July, you see the curve is completely flattened out and our life will get back to maybe not completely normal, but almost like it was before. So the thing that I think as leaders that we all have to remember is this is a temporary situation. No doubt a very challenging one that we're living through, and one that, you know, creates fear in a lot of people's minds. But it is a temporary situation, and there is light at the other end of the tunnel. Now, as the next slide shows you, I've been saying this for a lot of to my team of people, and that is that history has a tendency to repeat itself, because I'm a history buff and I strongly believe that history repeats itself. There's nothing really new that hasn't been invented before. You know, history just keeps repeating itself over and over again, maybe a little bit different twist than it did before. But this slide that you see in front of you is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, that is the US government. And they keep incredible data on every different industry sector. And this particular industry sector that we all live in is the leisure and the hospitality industry. And over the long haul, the leisure and the hospitality industry has outperformed other industries. And the chart that you see in front of you, this is very timely. I pulled it off the Bureau of Labor Statistics the day before yesterday. I went into the current data, and I know how to go in there and click that in and turn that into a report or a graph. And this is as of 2 days ago. So when you look back at our industry has been a very elastic industry over the years. It is one of the first industries to bounce back. So for me, this gives comfort, okay? When we're in a situation where we're out of control and we don't know what's going to happen, there's a lot of uncertainty, again, we learn lessons from history. Now, there was a recession back in 1990. You can see what that looks like there. And then, of course, we all lived through and experienced 9/11, probably the most horrific event that I could think of. I was in the staffing industry and ran a staffing office in downtown New York City during 9/11. It was probably the worst experience that I can think of my life. And as you look at the chart here, look at 2002, because it was 9/11, September, right before 2002, you'll see that there was a slight dip in hiring in the leisure and hospitality industry, and hiring is a measure of growth. And then again, it just went straight up again. Probably the most significant dip is during the Great Recession, which is in the 2008 years. That was a longer decline, and it took a little bit longer to climb out of it. But nonetheless, when you look at this graph, the chart for this graph, it's a straight line up, right? It doesn't look like an EKG, does it? An EKG is up and down and up and down and up and down, and peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys. For the most part, you see a pretty straight graph line up over the last 30 years in our industry. Now, I think probably the best barometer for us is looking at 9/11, because that was a single event that created calamity here in the United States. And when we look at what happened in 9/11, and again, right there in 2002, you'll see that there was a minor dip for a couple of months, and then it went right back up again. I believe that will happen again. Maybe it won't look quite the way it did before, but our industry is a strong industry, and there's going to be pent-up demand for people to get out and out to eat. I don't know about you, but you know, everybody in my family and friends, they say they're going nuts with cabin fever, and they're going to want to get out, and the restaurants are going to open again. Your business, while it's going to experience a struggle, you have to look for the positive and see that things are going to rebound again. Scott has some thoughts I think he wants to share with you on that as well.
No, great. I appreciate that, Brian. I think that, excuse me. part of what I do is I do use that same factor of making the bed every morning just to get something accomplished right away to start the day off. And wanted to talk a little bit about the positive attitude. And so when you're feeling negative or down and out as a business owner, as a person in general with life, one thing that I've learned, and it sounds crazy, but it's just like LeBron here with his hands up in the air. If you put your hands up and then you yell or say loudly yes with a smile, very important to smile as well. I promise you it works. So if you're in a negative funk, just put your hands up, scream yes, and it definitely helps. If you don't believe me, you can ask LeBron. So one other thing too is when you have those negative thoughts, either yourself or from somebody else, whether it be a family member, a business owner, a acquaintance, and either you think it or they say it, follow that up with 3 positive thoughts. It's got to be 3. For every 1 negative, 3 positive. It will help cancel it out, I promise you. And kind of when it comes to the planning aspect, as Brian, there's a lot of things that are going to happen. But if we fail to plan, then we plan to fail. That's just the way life is. So, and you never fail unless you quit, but that's okay. Sometimes when you quit, as long as you learn from it, it can be a true gift. And I just want to just end with here a little about Kobe Bryant, and I don't think this could be said any better. He said, I have a self-doubt, I have insecurity, I have fear of failure. I have nights when I show up at the arena and I'm like, my back hurts, my feet hurt, my knees hurt. I just don't have it. I just want to chill. We all have self-doubt. You don't deny it, but you also capitulate to it. You embrace it. So once you embrace it, joy arrives and the fear goes away. So, Kobe was the epitome of leadership on and off the court, just like Brian is here with Patrice and Associates. So I'm going to turn things back over to Brian to continue on.
Thank you. Great thoughts. I mean, I strongly believe that, one of my favorite speakers and authors was Dr. Napoleon Hill. And he said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And that is closely linked to the messages that you share with yourself. Last night I was doing some reading and some meditation, and it kept coming me back to your beliefs are formed by the messages that you say to yourself repeatedly. And in a time like right now, it's very important to watch your languaging. The language, now I'm not talking about the language that you're using with other people as much as I am talking about the language that you're using with yourself. Because that has an effect on your psyche. And all of us that are on the phone here today are caused to be leaders in some way, shape, or form. As I mentioned to you before, you're leading a team of people at your restaurant or your business. You're leading your family. Maybe you're a leader in your church group. We're all called upon to be a leader. Now, as I think about all the things that we as business people are going through, I was talking to a local restaurant here in my town, and it's been rough for him, and he was telling me how rough it's been for him. And he's had to, furlough some of his team members. He still has a small team that are working and doing carry out. But it's important to remember that, whatever your team is today, whether it is half the size or a third of the size, or whether you're talking about your family, as a leader, you have to set the pace for everybody. And here are some tips for guiding your team through a rough patch. And this is not something that's, from 10 years ago or 20 years ago. This is actually from last month. I think Business News Daily is where I got this as I was preparing the presentation today. We're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about maybe how it applies to your situation. And then I'll be happy to share with you what we're doing here at Patrice and Associates with our team of people. I think the most important thing is communicate, and over-communicate. Right now, when people are nervous and when people are scared and when people, are filled with a lot of uncertainty, the most important thing that I think you can do as a leader is to be visible, is to communicate about what is happening, not try to hide what's happening. Of course, you want to put the best possible, message out there and hope out there, but you need to be honest with people and communicate with them about what has happened or what is happening. You also need to be able to make decisions as a leader very quickly in this type of an environment. Maybe the decisions aren't the best decisions, maybe things aren't perfect, Maybe you haven't had a chance to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but you have to make decisions quickly. You know, there's been so much written about that as military leaders. Make a decision. You know, sometimes we can't always have the luxury of time to make a decision. We have to make a decision. And then one time I had a leader who told me this, and it struck a chord with me. I never forgot it. He said, Brian, once you made a decision, you have to work to make that decision right. And so I think that is very applicable to what we're doing right now. You know, what decisions have been made? What's the business rationale for the decision? Make the decision and then move forward and then communicate to everybody what your plan is going forward. And one of the first things that we did when this all started coming down at our organization was we sat down and said, okay, what is our plan? What can we control? What is within our ability to control? We can't control when the pandemic is going to be over. We can't control what happens to every single business that's out there. What is within our control? And of course, the obvious answer to that question is our actions are the things that are within our control. So we put together a plan for our business, a COVID-19 plan, and that plan included a variety of different things. What are the pressure points for our business in terms of where we develop and generate revenue either today or in the future? What is it that our team, when we're a franchise organization, so we're made up of great franchisees like Scott and many other people, what are the franchisees facing? What can they be doing on a daily basis to make it through this time and build their business and be prepared for when things turn back around again, which they're going to turn back around? So we created a strategy and a plan, have been executing on that plan. And that plan is, you know, having a meeting every Monday to talk about something that is pertinent to what is happening out there, ideas or suggestions to move the business forward. And there's other plans and other aspects of our business that are devoted to generating revenue that we're executing on as well. But part of the key to this whole thing was to develop a plan, communicate it to our team, be visible and be in front of our team, and have people be working and doing something productive. And this goes back to what I started off with, which is getting up and making your bed every day. Now, we still have clients that are hiring from us, but it's a lot less than what it was before. I have every confidence to believe that by the summertime and on, it's going to be right back up and maybe even greater because companies are going to have to ramp up quickly. And if you're a company that's listening to this, we want to be there to support you. And being there to support you is either to maybe help some of your displaced team members or you, or be there to support you a few months from now. Could mean a lot of different things. We believe that things will definitely turn around. So what we have been telling our franchisees to do is to be in touch with their clients, just like Scott is doing, and speaking to you all, getting known out there in the community, offering to help. I believe that if you put things out there in the universe that are good things, they're going to come back to you in ways that sometimes you don't recognize. So the first thing as a leader that you need to do is to develop the plan, whatever that plan is. What are the things that you can productively be doing that will either generate revenue for you today or will plant seeds for generating revenue in the future? And then go about executing those things, even if they're small things. Like for us, we reach out to our clients, we reach out to our candidates. You know, we have tasks every day that we know are building or planting seeds for the future. Are you going to be able to draw a direct line correlation to I did this and it generated this amount of revenue? Sometimes you can't do that. But I have a sense of accomplishment every Monday when we finish one of our webinars that we've accomplished something to help our team members. And each and every single one of our team members, like Scott, has a sense of accomplishment when he's offered to help a candidate who's maybe been displaced and needs to redo their resume, or offer to help a company in some way, shape, or form to navigate through this storm. So those little tasks can be what helps you get through this. But develop the plan. What is the plan going forward? Communicate it, and then follow up on it every day. And then find the lessons to be learned. What are the lessons to be learned? One of the lessons that I have already learned, not that I didn't know it before, is what a great collaborative team we have in my organization. From franchisees to pretty much everyone, on how we have come together and developed tools for our team to be able to utilize, valuable tools to be able to offer to the marketplace to help them. What are the lessons to be learned? I think there's a lesson to be learned that sometimes out of adversity comes invention. You think of other things, you move faster, you execute quicker. Why? Because you have a greater sense of urgency. I think it's also very important for you as a leader to be able to share your vision for the future. You know, I believe in my heart of hearts, and again, I study history, just like the slide that we looked at a few moments ago. I believe that our industry is going to turn around again. If you've had a chance to look on LinkedIn and see some of my videos, you know that I'm pretty passionate about that. I believe that our companies like you are going to need our help in the future. People are going to need our help in the future. So what is the vision for the future? I see a very robust July to December of this year. So if it's tough now for you or your team, tell them it's tough, but then share the vision of where you see it's going. People want to know that they have something to look forward to. You should also celebrate the large and the small wins. You know, when you're going through a situation like this, you're not going to always have super big wins. But celebrating the little victories, those little accomplishments that we talked about, can make a big difference to your own psyche and attitude. And ask for and be open to receiving honest feedback about what you can do differently. Next slide, please. You know, the next few weeks for all of us are going to be a little bit rough. We've been hearing that, right? Every time we turn on the TV, we hear that these next few weeks are going to be rough. But what I have shared with my team, and I tell myself every day when I get up, this is a temporary situation. Don't allow yourself to fall into the trap of thinking that this is the way it's going to be from this point forward. This is a temporary situation. The companies that will survive and thrive in this period are those that have the ability to react quickly, to gather together as a team, to execute on a plan, to communicate in the marketplace, and to react quickly. The companies that will survive and thrive are the ones that have the ability to react quickly. You also have the ability to be able to develop plans and execute them quickly, and also be nimble enough to be able to adjust them along the way. And just like Scott said a few moments ago, like we've been talking about, it's very important as a leader to be able to stay positive. A friend of mine leads a very large restaurant group in the United States. And he shared something with me the other day, and it really struck a chord with me. And what he shared with me was that every morning when I get up, I know somebody is depending upon me. And that is my drive, and that is my motivation. It's not that he's not scared either. I won't tell you the name of the restaurant, but he's a great leader. He's scared like all of us are. All of us are. And sometimes it's okay to show that a little bit of vulnerability with your team, to let them know, yeah, you're a little bit nervous about the situation. But it's very important for you as a leader to stay positive and to communicate with the team, be visible. Now's not the time to recalcitrate. Now's the time, if you're a team leader, to be visible to your team. Just saying hello, letting them know what your viewpoint is, helping them to believe that things are going to turn around soon. Very important. And finally, what we have themed in our company, what our motto is for these next few months, is to stay active and build bridges. Every Monday morning, we have a Monday morning motivational meeting, and we try to share something motivational along with something operational that our team can put into place. But the theme for the meetings are to stay active and to build bridges. Because again, going back to the start of what we started off with today, making your bed, that one small task or activity that you can do every single day that puts you in a forward momentum. Staying active and building bridges. Next slide, please, Scott. So to close the presentation today, and I think we're close to being on time here for the 30 minutes that we had set aside for you, as we respect your time and know that you're busy during this time as well, is, where do we go from here? This is a quote from the movie Coach Carter, and I think it has a lot of implication for us today, because we are fearful. All of us are a little bit afraid, right? Because we don't know what's coming next. And for those of us that are drivers or high Ds, we feel most in control when we're in control. And if we recognize that we're not in a situation where we're entirely in control, we have a limited amount of things we're in control over right now. So for many of us, that creates fear. The quote says, what is your deepest fear? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is your light, not your darkness, that most frightens us. You playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking, so people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as a child does. I'm sorry, we are all meant to shine as children do. It's not in some of us, it's in every one of us. As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And this is the most important thing that I want to leave you with, is as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So as leaders in these present times, it's a challenge for us, but we have to be able to overcome our own fear. And as we do that, we have the ability to put a ladder. That somebody might be down in the dumps, we have the ability to give them a ladder so that they can climb out of it. Thanks, Scott.
No, I appreciate it. There's a lot of great information. Hope everybody was taking some notes there. There's when I read a book or listen to a webinar, the focus is, can you find those nuggets? And I think there were a lot of great nuggets by Brian today, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I do just want to get to a couple questions we have, Brian. I have one question from Craig Feltner here. Do you anticipate the reopening of restaurants being gradual with restrictions, or sudden return without restrictions? What are your thoughts going forward?
Well, I think it's going to be different in a lot of different areas, and that's to a large degree depending upon the state and the local governments. We have a tendency to think of the federal government as being one thing, and certainly they're giving us guidance and direction right now. But ultimately, it is the state and the local governments that make the decisions. And they're going to make those decisions based upon what they feel is in the best interest of their communities. I think it will be gradual. I think that in some areas, it's going to open a little bit faster than others. In other areas, they're going to begin to gradually open it up a little bit. So I don't think it's going to be a sudden all at once, but I think the curve is going to be swift. Swift meaning weeks, not months, but it's going to be gradual and a little bit different in each area, in each state.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions coming through. So Brian, once again, appreciate your time coming on. I think it was a lot of value, hopefully, to everybody who joined. And just like every Friday at 2:30, we'll be live here. You can find the information usually about Monday or Tuesday. I wait till the weekend to see what's pressing so I can make sure that whatever is being brought as a value to you. You can find our information, Scott Meyer, Patrice and Associates, on LinkedIn, YouTube. And Brian, how can they reach you if they're wanting to learn more about yourself?
Well, they can always go on my LinkedIn page, or they can reach out to me at bmiller@patriceandassociates.com. That's my email address, B as in boy, M-I-L-L-E-R, Patrice, A-N-D, associates.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message there. So thanks for your time today. Great job, Scott. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, Brian. Well, we appreciate what you're doing and being a great servant leader, and hope everyone enjoyed today, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks a lot.
All right.